I'm gonna go ahead and start the stream up. Boop. And I think we're live. Looks like we are live, so we're good to go. Welcome everybody to HBR News number 163, After Show, spinning Lovecraft into a feminist dream quest. Oh boy. I can't wait to see what this is. You know, before we get into this, I've actually never read Lovecraft, but I've become quite interested in trying. I remember I bought this friend of mine at my job some of the Lovecraft novels. They were selling a bunch at Barnes and Noble, and she had never read it before, but she said that she tried to, and I guess the language is difficult because of from the time period or the way that Lovecraft writes or something. But I've still been curious. Like, I kind of like find it interesting, you know, just as a cultural thing, because it's sort of withstood the test of time for a while, and it has like a, pardon the pun, cult following. So
see, the order is first you read Lovecraft, and then you read Clive Barker.
Clive Barker is inspired by Lovecraft or something?
No, it's just fun to go from one to the other.
Oh, okay.
I'll just tell you, read Lovecraft, and then go read the Hellbound Heart after you've read a bunch of Lovecraft, and it hits right. I don't know how else to put it.
So you've read Lovecraft then?
Yeah, I was probably in junior high when I read Lovecraft. Most of what I read from... Now, I went back and read some when we were playing Call of Cthulhu back in the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I used to...
There's a lot of board games based off of his stuff. Like, I was playing Arkham Horror.
I have Eldritch Horror, and that was actually my first. I play it with Stapler, and we've done it a couple times. I like it a lot. It's pretty fun. And then one of the things that I learned about Lovecraft was that he wasn't necessarily going for horror. He was just going for weird. Like, he just liked weird shit. And it's just
very surreal.
Yeah, he likes that, but people have sort of made it into horror, I guess. I don't know. But I haven't read the stuff, so... I really like In the Mouth of Madness, too. I think it's a good movie. It's kind of a nod. It's probably the most Lovecraftian film, at least that I've ever seen, other than this more recent one called The Void, which was also pretty Lovecraftian. So, I mean, if that's a thing. Okay, so what happens when you add feminism to Lovecraft? I imagine it's the same thing that happens to everything else when you add the feminism to it. Yeah, you get hatecraft. All right. H.P. Lovecraft is best known for his Cthulhu mythos stories of cosmic horror, but he also wrote a sequence of more whimsical tales called the Dreamlands, about a magical realm that certain master dreamers can visit in their sleep. Fantasy author Keyes Johnson read the Dreamland stories as a child and remembers being entranced by them. They were full of great wonders, Johnson says in episode 217 of the Geek's Guide to the Galaxy podcast. I grew up as a little girl in Iowa, and we didn't have great wonders. We had a lot of pigs and soybeans. But when Johnson returned to the stories as an adult, she was troubled by the way that Lovecraft handles his female characters. Dun, dun, dun.
I imagine she was.
That was fucking great.
The only times that Lovecraft ever uses women, they tend to be very negative, very stereotypical, she says. They're evil old grannies or the scared farmer's wife, but even those are so minor. It's as though Go ahead.
How about Hydra, the mother of Cthulhu? She's
I was
pretty
gonna
important.
say, how about the farmer's wife that gives birth to a demon?
And what gender is Shub-Niggurath exactly? Because it looks like a big old cunt with a bunch of dicks coming out.
Well, first of all, you shouldn't be allowed to say that because that name is racist.
Then you must not know a lot about Lovecraft.
No.
Oh, geez.
Oh, that's good.
N-word wrath. Is that what you're gonna say now?
Yeah, N-word. Yeah, N-word wrath.
Or is it Negarath? Is it actually spelled with an I?
It is spelled with an I. It is spelled with an I.
It's not Negarath.
It's Nigarath. It's the wrath of. Oh, sorry. So women, well, apparently, despite the granny that gave birth to a demon or the Hydra, the women's depictions were still, it wasn't on par with her standards. That realization inspired her new book, The Dream Quest of Velit Bow. Is that a name? What is that? Which tells a dreamland story through the eyes of a capable older woman. Given that Johnson was rock climbing into her 50s, she knows firsthand how formidable such a character can be. Whew, this is cringy. None of the people who write about grandmothers making cookies ever imagined that someone whose grandmother age could do something like that, she says. That's not to say that all grandmothers can, but there are grandmothers who can, and it would be nice to see those people represented. Lovecraft is a writer who is equal parts brilliance and blind spots, which makes his worlds fertile ground for new approaches. Feminist takes on Lovecraft also appear in the recent anthologies She Walks in Shadows and Cthulhu's Daughters. Oh my god, I gotta see what that is. I want to know.
You just have to.
Yeah. So She Walks, Innsmouth Free Press. She Walks in Shadows. Let's get. I just want to see the. Is this like the back page summary? All right. They emerge from the shadows to claim the night. Women from around the world delve into Lovecraftian depths, penning and illustrating a variety of weird horrors. The pale and secretive Lavinia wanders through the woods. Asenath is a precocious teenager. Wait, no. There is no precocious teenagers named Asenath. That's not a name that we give to teenagers. And I mean, if I was going to high school, and I met a girl and her name was Asenath, I would avoid her. I'm just letting you know.
Because she's
might be an elder god.
What was that, Mike?
Probably because she's pretentious and precocious.
Yes, and has an attitude.
Attitude.
She keeps bragging about eating the universe. And the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Nitocris has found a new body in distant America. And do you have time to hear a word from our beloved mother, Shub-Niggurath? Oh, Shub-Niggurath is female. There you go. Mike was right. Shub-Niggurath is a woman. A single mom, as it were. Defiant, destructive, terrifying, and harrowing. The women in She Walks in Shadows are monsters and mothers, heroes and devourers. Observe them in all their glory. La. I don't know why you would write that.
Okay, so
a single mom that births a demon.
Who? What?
It's a single mom that births a demon. So
that gives birth to demons. Yeah.
Metaphor?
Is it a documentary?
I was gonna say I've worked in retail. I've seen enough single moms who have birthed demons in my lifetime. I don't need to read about them.
All right, now Cthulhu's Daughters, stories of Lovecraftian horror, edited by Sylvia Moreno Garcia and Paula Stiles. Women writers from around the world delve into Lovecraftian depths, penning and illustrating a variety. That's weird. This sounds like the same thing. Yeah, it is. They what? Wait, but this article says recent anthology She Walks in Shadows and Cthulhu's Daughters, as though they're different, but they're not. They're the same stories.
This is how feminism does things.
Oh my god. They must be. I bet these are peer reviewed. There's so much going on with Lovecraft that can be explored or can be countered, Johnson says. You can reply to Lovecraft in so many ways. Listen to our complete interview with Keyes Johnson in episode 217 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy, and check out some highlights from the discussion below.
Feminists don't understand literature.
No.
Like you don't read literature and then say this was wrong and we have to fix things. you read literature and you may be inspired to bounce off of it, and you may have your own look and your own take, and it's not wrong to go forward and write something because you are inspired by something else and put your own spin on it because you are the writer of your own writings. But for Pete's sake, you don't have to shit on everything that came before you. And it goes right back to that, judging people by the time period that you're in, as opposed to judging the standards of the day. And dear God, we should never explore the way things are in different places, and maybe things that are done and thought and said and felt differently than the way we would approach them. But yeah, feminists don't understand literature. They don't understand writing. They don't understand communication. They don't understand exploration. They don't understand people.
They just don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't understand new ideas.
But not in a good way.
We did a show on here on Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, and we learned that
we're doing the next rating on it. I'm still trying to write my my response.
Is it the same video?
Yes.
Infographic show. Yeah, Margaret.
It's just going to be ranting. Like, all I've written so far is one really long rant. They made us study that book in my school as well.
Oh my God.
And I'm not even Canadian. That's how far the termites have dined, gentlemen.
Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't have to read that, but I hadn't even heard of it until they announced the show. So, but she just was like, I wanted to make. I didn't like 1984. I wanted to make a female version of it, and that's what Handmaid's Tale is. So they don't even have an original idea most of the time. With this whole re-envisioning of history thing, I'm surprised that some feminists would even want to tackle trying to do Lovecraft stories, considering he's sort of he's like the Christopher Columbus of authors because of how racist and sexist he was. And I remember it was so much that there was some award show. We did a show on this at least a year ago, if not more. There was some award show for authors that were changing their trophies because the trophies used to have, it was Lovecraft's face. It was like his head. And they were changing it because of his racist and sexist background. So,
yikes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he was a product of the times, but even then, I hear these accusations, honestly, I hear these so often that I don't trust them on their face, and I feel the need to look into it myself. I just haven't bothered to do it with Lovecraft.
Oh, he totally was. I mean, it's yeah.
All right. Well,
he wrote a poem about black people that was not very flattering.
We should in that case we should get rid of the Supreme Court too, because of the Dred Scott hearing. The Dred Scott case totally delegitimizes everything the Supreme Court has ever done.
In fairness, if you read the things he wrote and with the racist things he wrote, they actually come across as kind of funny, like the main character discovering that someone else was a villain simply because he found out that through ancestry she was black, and that therefore he knew instantly she was the bad guy. That's just dumb.
I see.
Is that not how it works?
I see Lovecraft's poem.
I dumped it in the talking poll.
Oh
it's on the creation of
creation of niggers.
Shall we say naggers?
Shub Niggerath.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's okay.
Thanks.
So he had opinions. You didn't have a problem sharing them. All right. So where was I? Oh yeah, Keys Johnson on Lovecraft's vocabulary. I was a precocious child, and I was bored growing up in a small town, so I read dictionaries and encyclopedias. Wow, that's boring.
Wait. Who the hell reads a dictionary?
I did that, but it wasn't because I was bored. It was because I was interested in what was in them.
Yeah.
Hannah, that's even worse.
But
I know. I'm a nerd. I know. I read. my mother made me go outside and play because I was sitting in the hallway in front of the bookcase reading directly out of the encyclopedia.
Yikes.
Well, yeah, encyclopedia is one thing, but the dictionary, did you read it in alphabetical order or
No, I used to look through it for fun and look up words for fun, and like it was, you know, it was, I don't know, it was just interesting to me.
Here's a question. She read dictionaries plural. Did she have access to multiple dictionaries, and if so, was she expecting different contents?
It depends on the dictionary, actually.
Yeah.
If you look at older dictionaries, there are word definitions that will be different than they are in newer dictionaries, and then also if you look at technical dictionaries, like a medical dictionary is going to have words in it that have a different definition in your English dictionary than they do in the medical dictionary and stuff like that. So
there's
yeah.
also foreign dictionaries, French to
Yeah.
English dictionaries and Spanish to English dictionaries. I've occasionally flipped through a French dictionary just for fun, just to see what some words are.
Mm-hmm.
Just
So
for
I,
the kicks.
yeah,
Well, yeah.
That's how I found out that noblesse is the French word for nobility, which tickled me slightly.
Oh.
And travesty,
Yeah,
the
noblesse.
French word for transvestite.
It's from,
The travesty.
it's from the
That's also how I found
Latin.
out that the German word for bugger is arslock.
That's perfect.
Well, you do that, you find out.
That sounds like something you would use to prevent that.
Yeah, the German word for mobile phone is handy, which is pretty funny.
Voice my
There's
handy.
a kid's book
Oh,
character
my
here in
God.
America called Handy Manny.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Okay. So, she would read dictionaries and encyclopedias. So I did enjoy being able to use some of that vocabulary, and it was sort of trying to chime with the fact that Lovecraft would have words that, when I was a girl, I would look up, and I wouldn't find them in any dictionary, not even the Oxford English Dictionary, that gargantuan tome. It wouldn't even be in that. I was always a little in awe of that. In fact, there are, I think, 2 made-up words in this, which is sort of my tribute to the fact that I'm not 100% sure that he didn't just make those things up.
Yeah, think?
Keys Johnson on life experience. I wanted to write about a character who had a complicated and rich past. I wanted to write about an intellectual who had not always been an intellectual, because I find, as a new college professor, of course you are, I'm pushing a lot against people who have never done anything but been college professors and college students. Yeah, because that's what you surround yourself in when you're in academia. There is so much out there that they could have done that they didn't do, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Was a woman who had done all of these interesting things, made some decisions to do the right thing, the sensible thing, but still retain many of those skills. And also some of the nostalgia for that. When I had to stop climbing, it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because I was never going to be the person who climbed mountains the same way again. Keys Johnson on the dream quest of unknown Kadath. All of the dreamers are men. All of the gods are men. So I really wanted to think about that. What does it mean to have a world where everything is male? I didn't realize until after I had written it that these whimsical gods that change things all the time almost exactly map on to how it would have been for a woman in the 30s. That they can just shut down your college, that they can beat you to death and not get arrested for it, that they can do all these terrible things, they can take your goods and leave you destitute. Huh?
Yeah, that's not what it was like to be a woman in the 30s. I don't know that was ever what it was like to be a woman.
No, I doubt that. All the different, at least not without it also affecting men to at least the same degree, right?
It's like, it seems like she's referring to they being. I'm assuming she's referring to men as they. That's just not the way it ever was. Feminists have this misconception that it was at some point legal to beat women. It never was. It never actually was.
Yeah, this is like out of the blue. all the different.
But women were literally chattel like 100 years ago.
Chattel, exactly.
Yeah.
Literally, just maybe 100 or so years ago, 100 and such a few years ago, that women were still viewed as chattel.
All the
Matt Bender.
all the different practical ways that men would rule women's lives, and it all is mapped onto the dreamlands, where whimsical gods make things happen, and everybody else just has to cope, has to work around their bad days or their need for rest or their petty rivalries. Keith Johnson on Lovecraft's legacy. I think Lovecraft has come to the foreground because of so much discussion about the World Fantasy Award, which is a bust of Lovecraft. This is the thing I was talking about. There's a lot of discussion within the field of fantasy and science fiction about this. Does he deserve the amount of attention he gets? I think that right now a lot of people are pointing back to Lovecraft and saying, I loved him, but now I see the reasons why I was always uncomfortable. Or I love him, and I feel like he merits a second look. I'm seeing so many different approaches now to readdressing Lovecraft. I mean, I'm sure it'll go away. It's a trend. And 5 years from now, we'll be done with Lovecraft and we'll be on to, I hope, Shirley Jackson or something like that. So she doesn't even have like a real interest.
The author lottery.
What did Shirley Jackson write? Horror
the lottery.
Oh, she wrote The Lottery, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the one with the rocks and in their pockets and
yeah.
Yeah. And it's like supposed to be a surprise ending, and that the rocks are foreshadowing. You study foreshadowing by reading that story in lit class, usually in high school or college.
Yeah. Where's the World Fantasy Award? Let me just look at this real quick. So she's saying that I loved him, but now I see the reasons why I was always uncomfortable. It was like a hunch, so they've changed it. World Fantasy. Yeah, it was Lovecraft's face, but now it looks like it's like a tree with a moon behind it. Doesn't look as good. I hope, yeah, so why would she want it to be Shirley? I mean, obviously because it's a woman. That doesn't seem to be overly...
There's merit with Shirley Jackson. I don't know if you know The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
That was hers. So,
yeah.
I mean, but what are I don't know what she means when she says, who are we going to be on to next? Or I hope she doesn't mean, well, we've torn apart Lovecraft. Let's go after Shirley Jackson next. Probably those are probably the two most famous things I can think of about her. Was the lottery is studied in lit classes in high schools and colleges all over the U.S. and she's the writer of the Haunting of Hill House.
You know, I think what she's saying is, and it's a bit weird because the piece begins and she's a really big fan of Lovecraft's work, and she's talking about how she's making stuff that's modeled after what he does and like how he affected her life and everything as a young girl. But then at the end here, she talks about how Lovecraft's work is like trending right now. It's like hot. I'm curious about that. I don't know that it like maybe it is, but I don't see how it is because my understanding is, or in my experience, so this is just me speaking of my experience, Lovecraft was always kind of cool, but I would like the circles I traveled in is like I was a big tabletop gamer and I go to conventions and play board games and stuff, and Lovecraft was like all over that. His work has influenced a lot of other things that I didn't even know were influenced by it. So I don't think it ever wasn't kind of cool. Like people kind of like, universally knew about it or whatever, So I don't know what she means when she says it's a trend, because if it is, it's like a trend that's been going on for decades, in my estimation.
Means discovered Lovecraft and think that liking Lovecraft will make them cool.
Yeah, and that's
feminists are upset about it.
Yeah, and that's what I get from this too, because she says you know, it's a trend, and 5 years from now we'll be done with Lovecraft and we'll be on to somebody else, Shirley Jackson or something like that. So it's almost like Keith Johnson herself is saying, I really loved Lovecraft, but if the trend moves on, I will move on too. So it's like, well, did you really then? Like, were you at...
This isn't the...
Go ahead.
This isn't the first. I forget when it was. I've got another write-up here from at least a year ago, though, but it was another feminist take on Lovecraft. So what she's doing, what Keith Johnson's doing, is not anything new. I think it has been a trend.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe the feminist rewriting of Lovecraft stuff. I could see that.
Well, if they're gonna start doing that, they're gonna have fun, because they can go through various authors from classic times, and they can go look at horror, and they can go look at sci-fi. It'd be really fun if they go through sci-fi. Piers Anthony's got to be shaking in his boots, because he has had some stuff that he's written some stuff that feminists would take major issue with, even though there are ways in which he's kind of a feminist author himself. Like this could be fun to watch if it wasn't for the fact that they might actually end up threatening society's relationship with literature.
There's also Brian, another one that was actually a little bit more recent. We got the cover of it. It's another sort of feminist-inspired Lovecraft one. I'll put that in Talking Pole. Maybe throw that up on the main screen.
All right.
Oh boy.
Well, one of the main properties of Lovecraft was he wrote to kind of describe madness, and the best description of madness he could ever come up with is it's impossible to describe. This was a man trying to describe impossible madness, like in Call of Cthulhu game, you'd get a room made of tessellated octagons, and you had to think about that for a while before realizing that's impossible. But that's the idea of imagining madness, the idea that tessellating octagons make perfect sense. But to a feminist, they would. They'd be like, yeah, I can make it work.
Yeah.
I can make anything work.
Dr. Lehman made a video about Lovecraft, Lovecraftian culture, I guess you could say, or nerd culture. And he was talking about how the stuff that, basically, by and large, the stuff that's come out of, like, the Lovecraft, or the Cthulhu mythos, is not related to anything that H.P. Lovecraft himself wanted to create as such, but was rather a creation of the people in the circles that he traveled in, or were a product of the time. So it's like something he never intended that became a thing. They actually call it, oh boy, cosmicism. This is a real thing. I have a funny picture, by the way. I shared Mike's picture. Call of Me Tulu. It's on the screen. My God. Cosmicism is a literary philosophy developed and used by the American writer H.P. Lovecraft. It is weird fiction. Lovecraft was a writer of philosophically intense horror stories that involve occult phenomena like astral projection, alien miscegenation, and the themes of his fiction over time contributed to the development of the philosophy. It's a philosophy. I don't know that that was intended, but I was going to check something. I did a search for Lovecraft feminism, and this is one of the things that came up. So I was like curious about.
I think he predated the term for the most part. I know the term goes right back to Charles Fourier, but it wasn't popularized when Lovecraft was around, right?
Lovecraft was around from. Hold on, let me go back. I want to see. I thought he was like 19th century, but
it's difficult to tell because he's so timeless.
Yeah.
Timelessly weird.
He's from the 1930s. So he's born in 1890, and he was like kind of writing in the 1920s and 30s, it looks like.
Very possibly he'd never heard of feminism.
No, at least not by that name. Although I think the word feminism is older. I think it does go back.
Well, yeah, but around the 1830s or 1840s, it was an outdated term. It was used more to mean femininity. It was a synonym for femininity. It wasn't used to describe a movement Fourier kind of coined the use of the word feminism to describe the political movement that is now feminism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, feminism existed without the name way before.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a movement before that. Although there were women's sort of social evolution movements that were not necessarily where the women were necessarily claiming to be oppressed by male society. They just felt that women's role wasn't changing rapidly enough or needed to change in ways that it wasn't changing, and they pushed for it. And it wasn't about pitting men against women. It was about modernizing women and modernizing the way women's relationship to society and their relationship to family was. Feminism kind of ran over those and beat them to the finish line, I guess you could say, and destroyed a lot of them. And what we ended up left with was this horrible political movement that pits women against men, and women against families, and women against children, and women against society in order to raise money and create political power for its leadership.
Mm-hmm. I did find under the Lovecraft thing, there was a link to something called feminist metaphysics. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Oh, no.
I'm going to read a little bit
of it.
Standpoint
theory is standpoint theory like categorized as feminist metaphysics? My best guess.
Could be. I don't know. It says, okay, where metaphysics tries to explain what is the universe and what it is like, feminist metaphysics questions, of course it does, how metaphysical answers have supported sexism. Our ideas we have about fundamental subjects like the self, mind, body, nature, essence, and identity formed with gendered bias. For instance, feminist metaphysics would ask if Cartesian dualism, the concept of humans having minds separate from our bodies, privileges men or masculinity. I swear to God, you can feminist anything. It's like an add-on. You can just add it on.
They've already done Einstein. They've already done Newton. Why wouldn't they do the less big hitters now? I mean, yeah. Where do they go from here?
Feminist Nietzsche. Feminist Freud. Oh, I'm sure they've already done that.
Nietzsche was clearly toxically masculine. Oh, he's the Hitler guy, right? Yeah. Nietzsche with patriarchy all over.
Look at that mustache. He's just showing off all that masculinity with that mustache. One famous quote.
We would never treat ordinary men like they're supposed to be supermen. We would never dream of. Look at that shape over there.
So, the famous quote, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman," coined by Simone de Beauvoir, can be considered feminist metaphysical critique. De Beauvoir does not deny that some people are born with female body parts, but that those body parts need not imply how one is socially situated. Yet for many societies, being in possession of those body parts prescribes social roles, norms, and activities, and the differences are said to be necessary because they are natural. I was hoping for something like...
Female body parts are just a social construct.
Yeah, they're not real.
But let me guess, males they get to be called men just automatically. Just as soon as their balls drop, right, you're a man now, you don't need to do anything.
Since de Beauvoir, many feminists have presented the view that social hierarchies are perpetuated by the fallacy that they are metaphysically natural. In fact, the power that comes from naturalizing myths about universal categories has made feminists wary of accepting that any category is at all natural. And subsequently, a response is that any such supposedly natural category should not be a basis for how we organize ourselves socially.
By the way, about de Beauvoir.
Yeah.
What a cunt.
Critique of social construction. If being a woman is not due to situation like biology, de Beauvoir claims that it is due to instrumentality of women's freedom. Critic Judith Butler finds this problematic because de Beauvoir's reasoning now plots situation against instrumentality, plays into Cartesian body freedom dualism. Can't have that. Can't have any of that body freedom dualism. What the fuck?
Is this the same wing of feminism that has now already moved on to there is no such thing as biological sex?
Yes.
I mean, they've, like I say, they haven't moved on to metaphysics. It's a backward move. They've already moved on to physical things themselves. They've already jumped the fucking shark and said, right, now there's no such thing as biological sex. Is that a fucking theory? Do you want to examine with your feminist metaphysical lens at all? Oh.
Wow. Metaphysicians. Well, that I lost some brain cells with that. Thank you, feminists. I don't know. I think I'm good. I think I'm gonna go get some dinner now. Okay. Thank you for that. You know, H.P. Lovecraft died of he had cancer in his small intestine and it killed him slowly. He was killed by his inner tentacle. Just putting it out there, something to think about.
Cthulhu is within us all.
In some form, yes. So, all right. Well, with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for joining us on the after show. And we'll talk to you guys very soon. Have a